Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we're going to take a look at a pretty new and fairly rare rifle here. This is a Colt CK901. And these were manufactured specifically by Colt for a contract with the Yemeni military. And very recently, 2014, if I recall correctly. What we have here is basically an AR-15 or M16 platform rifle using 7.62x39mm from AK magazines. Of course, Yemen and many other countries in the Middle East still have extensive stocks of AKs and 7.62x39mm ammunition, and the Yemeni military wanted a better rifle that would still retain compatibility with its older AKs and ammo. And so Colt put together this rifle for them. They did this they actually started with the basis of the CM-901, which was a modular rifle that Colt put out that could be adapted to use either 5.56 or 308. So it had a larger, lower receiver and an interchangeable magazine well unit that allowed you to use one mag or the other. And they took that rifle and used it as the basis for a 7.62x39 rifle. Now, the biggest reason to do that is that rifle had a 308 sized bolt. It's possible to convert a 5.56 AR bolt and carrier to 7.62x39, but it really is substantially, the bolt face, for example, is much larger. And while in theory, it's not like the pressure is a lot higher, but you're cutting away a lot of material for a larger cartridge, and it leads to fragile bolts, the potential for breakage. By using a bolt that started out designed for 7.62 NATO, changing that up for 7.62x39, you don't have any of those durability problems. So it makes good sense that Colt would do that. They then cut the receiver. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a closer look and I'll show you those details up close. So of course the 7.62x39 magazine is pretty distinctive here. If we go in and take a closer look, you'll see Colt's logo, CK901 is the model number. You'll notice these have YEM for Yemen in the serial number prefix. This one is a select fire full NFA example, just like the Yemeni government got. That is it for markings. Now the controls on these rifles were made pretty much completely ambidextrous. So you'll notice that there is a right side selector here and a selector on the left side as well as normal. Colt put an ambidextrous charging handle on these rifles so that you can grab it from either side. That is important because the AK magazine does not have any sort of follower hold open tab. So unlike ARs, standard ARs, these rifles do not lock open when empty, simply because there's no mechanism in the magazine to allow it. So there is no bolt release on either side of the rifle. And as a result, when the gun runs dry, it goes click, you put in a new magazine, and then you have to actually charge the weapon using the charging handle up here. The magazine release is a paddle style, just like a regular AK, and that's kind of dictated by the rear locking lug of the AK magazine. Speaking of magazines, Colt actually shipped these rifles with US Palm 30-round plastic, non-reinforced feed lip magazines. These things are lightweight, but beyond that, I can't come up with any good reason why you would use this, except perhaps maybe Colt got some particularly good kickback or profit margin on adding these magazines to the rifles. We know that they're not particularly, a particularly good idea because US Palm is already out of business and not making these anymore. So maybe actually a collectible magazine in its own right. Now, despite they may have been shipped with these, but the rifles are compatible with all standard steel sort of surplus AK mags, and I'm sure that is how the vast majority of them will be used. Since I know somebody is going to ask, drum magazines, not compatible. The feed tower is not nearly long enough to fit into that magazine well. Now, if we go ahead and disassemble this guy, it comes apart just like a standard AR-15. Pop out the two upper and lower pins. Pull the lower off. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Pull out our bolt and carrier assembly. And by the way, there are a lot of outsourced parts on these rifles. So you'll notice the iron sights, the rear iron sight is marked Colt Defense. But if we look on the underside here, it's actually a Troy rear sight. We have a BCM charging handle, The flash hider is Vortex, the buttstock is Veltor, and so on. If we look at the bolt and carrier assemblies, you can see that they are dramatically larger than the standard AR-15. This is the CK901, and this is just a standard BCM AR bolt carrier group. The particularly relevant point here is the size of the bolt face. So the actual case head of 7.62x39 is not that different from 308 7.62 NATO, and just cutting a hole that large in the center of a standard 5.56 bolt creates durability problems. There's just not enough material there to do it. So these were done on 308 bolts and bolt carriers instead, and that shows. The rest of the upper assembly is pretty normal. They put a pretty heavy barrel on these things. They do have a monolithic upper, so you can see there's no gap. The upper receiver and the handguard are one continuous piece, so it is free-floated and does have a continuous rail to get the most accuracy out of your 50-year-old surplus 7.62x39 ammo, I suppose. The lower, I think, is more interesting. And again, they have a 308 length lower receiver, basically, with a little bit of modification done here. You can see this screw on the side and a matching one on the other side. And what that does is lock a steel, basically a steel magazine catch block into the aluminum lower receiver. So the front lip of the magazine is going to lock in right there. If we take a magazine like so, you can see that it's going to hold the magazine nice and high, which is a good thing. And you can see our coil spring and magazine release in the back as dictated by the design of the magazine. That steel locking block is made necessary by the fact that they're going to be presumably used with mostly steel magazines, and if you start racking steel magazines into an aluminum locking catch, you are very quickly going to wear down that aluminum and cause problems. So steel, and that in theory could be interchanged. I suppose if they wanted to do one of these with a 5.45 magazine, they probably are in a good position to have a slightly different catch in the front and be able to do 5.45. I have no idea if that's in the cards for Colt, but seems like an interesting option. So these rifles were originally sold to the Yemeni military, and I guess suppose not surprisingly, the Yemeni military has proved to be a bit leaky, and these rifles have ended up on both sides of the conflict going on in Yemen, as well as at least a couple of them ending up in on the private secondhand market in the area. Colt was also apparently really expecting that they would get a lot more sales of this rifle to militaries in the region. I can understand why. I think they expected a lot of countries would be really interested in a more accurate and just generally higher quality rifle using AK mags and ammo, and that appears to have not really turned out. As far as I know, Colt hasn't made any sales of these beyond Yemen. They have not yet introduced this rifle on the civilian market here in the United States. One would think that they probably would. If they've tooled up for it, I don't know why they wouldn't offer it. I think there would be a fair amount of interest in it from, well, let's be honest, mostly from people who just want another AK or another AR that's a little bit different. The AK magazine thing is different. I'm not sure that it's objectively better. 5.56 ammo is pretty good and not exactly difficult to get. Same with the magazines, but it would be a cool thing that I'm sure a lot of American collectors would like to have. So anyway, by the time you watch this, maybe Colt will have released it. Who knows? If you enjoy seeing this, make sure to tune in again tomorrow on Forgotten Weapons for some more cool, unusual firearms. Thanks for watching.